Hello, you're listening to the Game Club podcast presented by the Terrible Video Gamers Club. The Game Club is our version of a book club, but for video games. I'm your host, Tyler Schatz, and joining me is the one and only Gary Delaney.
One true hero, Iron Man.
So we're kind of light on people here today. We can talk about it a little bit later on here, but there's just some stuff that prevented some people from playing the game here. But we're here to discuss our time with playing the game Anthem, and this was a suggested game by you, Gary. So go ahead and just
Okay.
give us some
According to
details.
the Wikipedias, Anthem is an online multiplayer action role-playing video game developed by BioWare, published by Electronic Arts. The game was released worldwide on Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, Xbox One in February 22nd, 2019. Upon release, it kind of got critically kicked about, kind of shallow gameplay, a story that really wasn't that impressive. So the after support was that in February of 2020, so a year later, they said they were going to reinvent the game and they kind of reinvigorate the game. And then a year after that, they said they just ceased all future developments with the game. So, like, a lot of hype coming into the game. It's really cool. You're gonna play as Iron Man. Like, it's made by BioWare, the people who develop like Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect. And so just a lot of like, oh my gosh, I want to try this. And then I think it was also buggy when it came out, and so just I was looking also up on the Wikipedia that before release, given that it released in 2019, in 2018 at the Game Critics Award, it won Best PC Game and Best Action Game. And it was nominated for Best in Show, Best Original Game, and Best Online Multiplayer. So before the game came out, like, people were hyped, and then it just generally disappointed.
Well, yeah,
Tyler, do you have any other thoughts on the history?
I was gonna say, it's like you said there, though. This was the next game from BioWare, the game or the company that, or studio, I should say, that gave us Mass Effect. It gave us Knights of the Old Republic. It gave us Dragon Age. All of these just quality games that people look fondly on. Granted, now the way Mass Effect ended had a problem here, and then also too, even though it wasn't the proper BioWare studio, they had also done
Mass Effect Andromeda.
that's it. Yep.
It said here that their previous game, Mass Effect Andromeda.
And I don't believe it was the BioWare studio, like the real BioWare studio. I think it was like an offshoot BioWare studio that was founded at some point or rebranded to BioWare.
So, what I found interesting, obviously Tyler knows, I played with Tyler for the multiplayer section on PC, but I also played a much longer playthrough on Xbox because that's where I'm comfortable. That's where I like to play. The Metacritic scores differ based on system, not a whole lot. PC is 59, PS4 is 54, and the high mark is Xbox with 65 out of 100. So most of the reviews or scores are 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10s, 5 out of 10s, 55%. So anywhere between, like, you showed up and it was fun for a little bit.
Yeah, so to like get into my thoughts on the game there, my thoughts were definitely colored on this game to begin with from the start there, because and we don't have to go into the history of this because that's all kind of outside of the topic of what we're trying to discuss here. But like my thoughts on the game were already colored severely by what this game nearly did to BioWare itself there. But like from the initial premise, like it seemed like a cool game. Like you get in this big mech suit and you fly around and you shoot stuff and you have powers and things like that. And they like it's from BioWare, so you're like, oh yeah, the missions and stuff like that. The storytelling, it's got to be something really cool because they always do pretty decent storytelling in all their games. But it was just like it seemed like the stuff that we did play there for a little bit. And granted, we ran into an issue where we repeated a mission somehow by accident there. I'm pretty for sure we ended up repeating one mission there, but it
Yeah.
was all just kind of the same there of like, you go to this place, shoot these guys, fly over to this next place, shoot these guys, hold X over here for a little bit and stuff like that. It just didn't feel like, and that's probably a lot of the complaints to the game. There just wasn't really much there.
I think one of the reviews I kind of quick peeked at before this, I didn't have any reviews spoil my original view of the game, but was that the enemies don't, there's no unique enemies after like the 4th hour. It's just the recycled enemies in waves. And initially I think like we were playing on normal and I was like, Tyler, let's kick this up to hard because it like just seemed like, well, Tyler was killing everyone and I just was trying to mop up who I could find. And then we went to hard and it was a passable shooter at that point. And then we went into, I don't know what kind of instance it was where like it was literally just boatloads of bad guys. There were time limits. So that I think had some potential in the world of part-time, as Tyler knows, playing Halo in part-time. It's just like trying to do things and trying to kill, like that had potential, but it was just recycling the same bad guys. Like I think in other MMOs, like you'd have some bad guys that would have fire power, poison power, ice power. Like it was just like there wasn't any complexity. So
I don't even think there was that really there of like the difference of the enemies. Like we had you have your standard grunt enemies, then you had some elite enemies which were tougher to kill, and then you had that big bad guy enemy who you had to get behind every time to try and kill. So there was definitely like a lot of recycling to the enemies too. And the thing that really kind of wasn't the greatest was, so this was my interpretation of what you would call a looter shooter, basically. It's a term that you kind of compare to like Borderlands, where your whole goal is like shooting to get better loot, pretty much like a Diablo then too, except Diablo obviously you don't shoot. The whole goal of the game is basically to continue to grind and get yourself better geared so you become the biggest, baddest mech suit on the planet there. And like I always remember the story I read about one of the bugs in the game because they messed something up with the way the loot worked. Was somebody found that if you used the original starting weapon the entire time, that gun was the strongest gun in the entire game.
Yeah, I think you told me that, and I was like, I can believe it. Like the other reviews I saw was based on the different the javelins or mechs. Some things just weren't balanced. Like, and that I guess reading the information that they gave it a year, tried to rebalance it, and still, like, I can't even imagine what this was like at release because it's passable now.
Yeah, like it's definitely a game. Like I think it was fun for me in the couple of, I think in like the 2-ish hours I played, because it was like just something you put on, play with some friends, and chit chat while you're kind of just shooting stuff there. Really, it's kind of like when we were playing Ghost Recon way back when. You know, I have no idea what the heck the story of Ghost Recon Wildlands is, other than we're guys in Colombia shooting bad guys. That's about it. But the whole
And the plot was so interwoven. Like you were doing so much other stuff in between a plot being explained to you that you just forgot. I also would say that about this game. And terrible loading times.
Yeah.
Like, loading times, loading in, loading out, like, of the world. Like, just put a pause to kind of your momentum in the game of like, oh, I just want to sit down, let's play for a bit. It's like, okay, what do I have back in Fort Tarsus? Okay, now I'm going to start a mission. Now I'm going to get up and go, like, grab something out of the fridge because I have easily a minute this thing's going to take to load.
Yeah.
Instances within the map weren't as bad. They were like, 5-10 seconds, but...
That was weird, too. It felt like some of the times there were spots where it's like I jumped into the next instance on the map there, and you were wondering, where did you go? And I was like, were
you just like waiting in a repetitive wait loop? Like, yeah, it just put you in a loading screen until I came to that, like, gateway?
Yeah, I was just hanging out in the loading screen there, basically waiting for you.
And then as soon as I went through the gateway, it's just like poof, you're there, and it's
Yeah.
just like it seems like they made some bad choices. I think the map was yeah. I think the map was too big based on the loading times and like I I feel like even if this was like a tunnel shooter, it would be better than the trying to make it an open world shooter. If you just drop me in a map, there's invisible walls, and I'm just gonna fly through these caverns and stuff. That would, I think, been just as fulfilling. I played a little bit of free play today. It wasn't, and the signposting was real bad. I couldn't put waypoints on the map. It was bad.
Yeah,
Like
it was like definitely fun to fly around in that game. Like they I think they really nailed like the feeling of the flight combat and stuff like that. Although sometimes it got kind of a little wonky when you were going like up and down and stuff like that or anything else. But I there was one sometimes too where like I couldn't figure out how do I stop myself where I hover in air so that way I can get my gun out to shoot the guys down below. I think I always ended up just running into something that would stop me and then I could start laying waste to the guys down below.
see, the control scheme was also like not good. Uh, as somebody who like I obviously on PC, all bets are off. PC people are going to do PC people things. On Xbox, I have to hold the X button to change weapons. My brain says why. Like why is it universal Halo Call of Duty mindset is that Y is to change buttons, X is to reload. B is really a dangerous weapon because B can be grenades if you're in Rainbow Six. A is interact with the world. But yeah, they just made some interesting choices.
Yeah, there's always something to be said about the design of like the controller and stuff like that. Like I was playing with the controller on the PC too, so I had just the same experience that you did as far as that goes. But there's it's definitely like an interesting choice people make of like do they stick with the same old controls or do they try and change it up just slightly enough here? And yeah, I think we had that issue too where we both unlocked like a secondary weapon and they're like, I have no idea how to change my secondary weapon right now. And I think it just happened. One of us finally was like, hold X for a while.
And it, as somebody who played a little bit further, and I started trying to mix some weapon combos, is that you kind of run out. I feel like something that I don't do good in Call of Duty, but probably you do, Tyler, is you empty your gun and then you switch to the other gun. As it's the same button, the difference between tap to reload and hold to change weapons gets really confusing. Or I'm just like, oh, I just want to reload. I just hold the X button and then it changes weapons, and it was just frustrating.
Yeah.
But
And then too, like I kept always mentioning this when we were playing there, like so after like I'm guessing it's so many kills or doing so much damage to stuff, you get to use your super weapon. And I never remembered that thing until like the end when we'd already killed all the bad guys in the area. It's like, oh yeah, I have this super weapon to use, and I'd whip that out and just start shooting randomly at the end because it's like, well, might as well just waste this now because the level's over.
and it wasn't, I don't know, I even barely use it when I was playing on Xbox. Like it would remind you though, like, hey, you have a super weapon to use, and it's like, oh well, I was trying to use grenades, and um,
That might have been my fault too. Maybe so much stuff was just going on screen, I wasn't paying as good of attention as I should have been.
also, speaking of the javelins or mechs, when I started on Xbox, I actually played a Colossus, which you started as on PC, and I had a Ranger originally. And I would say that there was potential because the Colossus just controls differently. The biggest thing is that the Ranger has a grenade. You throw a grenade. The Colossus has like a mortar. So I always felt like I had to try to aim this mortar when I was like trying to run around. I thought it was a good idea, but just too clunky for how like much of a CF the fighting was. Like
Yeah, I think the problem came in for us of just like it it's again probably the design thing of like so there are some games out there I call them like class based shooters where well, I think they're naturally called class-based shooters too, or whatever. It's just a term for them, but it's like your Overwatches and even like Battlefield to an extent, where you have some people who choose a class and then they kind of need to play that class. Like if you're in the medic, and I think you're the one who does always a good job of this in like Battlefield, where you run around with the medic stuff reviving people all the time. Like
Yeah,
that's kind of part of your role there as part of the team of like revive people, or like in Overwatch, I'm sure there's people who are defensive, offensive, and all of that stuff. It felt like they kind of went towards like a class system with the different javelins, because like obviously the Colossus is your big bruiser there. He's the biggest mech and he should be just throwing out a whole bunch of damage or kind of doing some defending too. But like you were playing the Ranger and I was playing the Colossus there, and it just like felt so weird because I'm naturally more of a go tank heavy, big damage kind of person. I don't really care about defense all that much in a lot of games, but it felt weird that there was just kind of like you said, especially with that mortar that I kept using, is like, well, now I have to stop quickly, point where I want to aim this thing and fire it real quickly while I'm in the midst
and the
of shooting
reload
everyone.
speed at the beginning was real hot trash.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I don't
but
know, like,
also, I didn't realize that we had different shield bars. When you play as the Colossus, it was like 1 health / shield bar. When you play as a Ranger, you have a shield bar, and then you have a health bar. So you have to kind of, as I said, kind of play more of that Halo mindset, where you can take some damage, but as soon as you take so much damage, you start losing health.
yep.
But yeah, that was the Javelin types. I didn't play the other two. At level 12, no, sorry, level 8, you unlock the ability for a second Javelin, and that was kind of a grind.
That's a good point there too. That's kind of dumb. That I mean, obviously, I never experienced that. I got to play the Colossus, which is what I wanted to play, but it's kind of funny that they lock different classes behind levels in that game. So it's like you can't experience everything right away. And I don't know, can you switch javelins?
You can't. Once I got to level 8, I think I could switch between the two, but I just went straight to the Ranger. But yeah, I think there might even been a prompt that even if you restart, you're locked to this Javelin. And I was just like, that's weird. Because yeah, like if you want to get somebody in, some people like having a wizard class and a warrior class and so like have some different play styles and kind of play the game, and it offers replayability, and it forces you to start a new save and play as a new. But yeah, that was a silly decision. The town itself, I think, was a real miss. Like your home base area, which is like a giant open area. In BioWare terms, it's similar to like being on the Mass Effect ship.
Normandy?
The Normandy is that you go around and you talk to people, but in the village, there's not a whole lot of talking. It's a lot of like signposts, like, "Hey, this person has something to tell you," and so you'd go and run do that, and then I'd go do a mission, and I'd come back for the mission, and like, oh, well, now they have the next part of that conversation. But the area felt really open and unused. I don't know. Did you get to the point where the doors open and you got this? You didn't get to that second half. There's another area.
I think I did. It's like it seems like the big base area for the javelins and the command center in there.
Well, there's like a fountain.
I don't remember.
Anyway, so yeah, basically when you first start the first couple missions, there's 2 sentinels standing in front of a doorway right at the end of the bazaar. Those doors open at some point.
Okay.
And then I guess, do you have any other things? I have lots of other random things that I thought were good. They had a faction system. They had gun leveling.
I was gonna
They had
ask
challenges.
before you got into that, like, how was it playing on the Xbox versus how was your PC experience?
I thought the load times were about the same. Obviously, on the Xbox, I'm playing on Series X, so a nice Xbox, but I'm only playing a 1080p TV. It was. It maybe didn't look as sharp and as pretty and clean, but as the number one complaint about this game is that it's just not well designed. Honestly, I think they needed to like focus other places than making the game pretty. I think that was definitely a waste on this game, is that they tried to make something pretty. Also, my other opinion, hot take, they should not have released this on all three systems. This should have been an Xbox exclusive. Why? Because all good BioWare games start on Xboxes. Mic drop.
That is true.
KOTOR was on the original Xbox. Mass Effect was on the 360. And I think it's a lot of games now where when they develop for multiple platforms, like the real shine kind of sort of, you can tell it's divided.
Well, I mean, not to get too deep into how the current systems are, but now the current systems are a lot closer than they ever were, basically, as far as designing for them.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was okay on Xbox. I wasn't I guess the things we didn't see is I saw a getting kicked from a game. I saw a complete game crash. Like where I got one where I got kicked back to Fort Tarsus, another one where the game just completely shut down, and then a third time where it's like you lost connection to the EA servers. I'm like, what the hell? And I completely understand. I used to play Skate 2 and Skate 3, where like if you lose connection to EA servers, like the game's dead. So I didn't think it was that much worse.
Speaking of
I
crashes,
thought that
I was gonna say, I think I ran into one crash when you and I were playing. I think there was like a time where it just
that's
completely
right.
locked up everything. I was like, oh, well, this is fun. I think we like just beat a mission too. It's like it froze me like at some load or whatever.
Oh no, I had one where literally it two different. The one, it froze me in the middle of combat. It's like, hey, you just finished a cutscene. Like, let's go out here and go fight bad guys. And it's like, what? And I'm like, I don't what off. I was like, I am easily like probably what felt like 10 minutes into a mission, but once you skip the cutscenes, it was probably only like probably 3-4 minutes of lost time. But yeah, flying to mission seems weird. I've also heard that if except for a couple different times, you don't actually have to go into free play mode. Like you can just load the missions.
Yeah, it was kind of clunky to try and figure out like how to actually get the mission started, because like I would load it up, thought I had the mission selected, and then it was like, okay, I'm at the screen. Well, do I have to back out of the screen to ready up? Do I have to go further into some menu to ready up?
And I think by default it puts you into public lobbies.
Yep.
And when I started playing Xbox, like as I mentioned difficulty earlier, like I literally at some point just knocked everything to easy, because when you like for the first couple missions, it seemed like they'd always throw people in with me occasionally, and then it was just like nobody is playing these missions right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's
and it was
probably it.
mostly notable because the first mission I had a Colossus, and you had to fight the big evil guy with the shield, and I didn't have somebody else. So it's like, oh, well, you just need to shoot him in the back, and it's like, I am one dude, and this guy with the shield is constantly looking at me. So it was like trying to get ammo, trying to shoot mortars, trying to throw grenade, like trying to do anything to just chip away at this guy's health. Not fun. Oh, also, based on experience on PC, I clicked up to hard. So it's on hard on like the second mission with no ability to like get behind the bad guy. It was a total grind. So, I guess from what you played, did you get the sense of the three factions? There's the freelancers, the people who are your clan. There's the sentinels, who are the guards of the city. very similar, like they're just dudes in mechs, but they just guard the city. And then there's kind of the arcanists, the scientists. So you could do some missions for the scientists where you help them. You do some missions where you help defend a base for the sentinels. And as you did things or you had conversations with NPCs, it would increase your standing with the factions. And then once you got it leveled up, then you'd unlock some more unlocks for guns you could craft and stuff like that. So there's a crafting mechanic, but honestly, at some point, I just felt like I was getting guns that were crap.
Yeah, as with all these kind of loot games, you just end up with stuff that is just shit, pretty much.
But I didn't, and obviously also it didn't explain the challenge system very well. I found out that if you used the same gun, like an LMG, but there's like 3 different brands of that. There's basically there's 3 different types of shotguns, and it's just, I think, how the stats are mixed in each of the levels of it. But if you use that and got 50 kills with that shotgun, you'd unlock a green craftable version of it. And then if you go back and use that same weapon and killed 25 elites, you had a blue version that you could craft. And green versions had 1 rollable skill, and blue versions had 2 rollable skills. So there was like an RPG crafting system where you could just continually try to craft the same weapon to try to get something. They had some thoughts. Some things were good and they were on the right track, but they went a little too heavy-handed on some of it. The challenges, there was daily challenges to get some cash and stuff like that, kind of buried. The map in the game was buried in the pause menus.
I was gonna say, you're a big fan of the daily challenges. I always know you keep harping on me to play a Fall Guys with you every so often because you like to grind out those daily challenges.
It's just my play style is that the game can get kind of boring for me if you're just grinding. But if you're just like, oh, you got to try to do this thing, and it's like, oh, well, I wouldn't have done this, but I'll do it. Like, to get some extra in Fall Guys, it's extra experience or extra kudos cash that you can use in the free store. Like, I enjoy daily challenges. It's like forcing you not to just use the same gun over and over again. However, the weapon challenge is using the same gun over and over again. There was a sniper rifle that was like explosive. I got that one leveled up a little bit. But that one is just... if there's ever a gun that's not designed for this game, it's a sniper rifle. Because everybody's in your face right next to you. And it's like, oh, I'm going to shoot you with a sniper... to all extents of person, a rocket launcher. Because it just blew up and it could kill a couple of enemies. But with a very slow reload speed. And I'm just like, this is not... The shotgun was real fun, but sniper rifles, even at some point single shot rifles, just did not seem reliable. I don't know. With my level of accuracy.
Using the chain gun there along with my my javelin there. I was a big fan of the chain gun in the game.
I played as the chain gun. I thought it didn't have enough ammo. And maybe that's just something you have to up. You can get better boosts to get more ammo, but I just kept running out of ammo.
Tip, Gary. Large machine guns never have enough ammo.
Yeah. And that was the other thing with the big evil boss, is that I got to a point where, like, I have this big chain gun, I don't have any ammo for it. And I have to magically get him turned just enough that I can use my limited firepower to hit him in the side. While all these other minions just keep auto-spawning. Like, I wish the enemies were more directional. Like, hey, we're coming over here. Like, instead of like, oh, well, they're coming from 5 different directions. Like, and so even like a tactical shooter of like, hey, I'm over here, the bad guys are coming at me. Like, what do I do? But this game had like weird portals of like, oh, they're just popping up out of nowhere. But Yeah, I didn't see any big system differences. I would say that there was lots of pretty scenery. I think I mentioned before. I don't think it was advantageous for gameplay. Like, it was definitely a award season sort of design of waterfalls and all this other stuff. Uh, I think we had a mission where we went underwater and did something like that. I didn't have another mission after that where I had to fly my Spartan underwater, or my, like, you would think that would be an opportunity. Is like, hey, there's this random puddle. Oh, fun fact, it leads to a sweet loot or a sweet boss. Like, I don't know. But I just think this game could have been better, more divided into planets, or a starting area, a middle area, a boss tier area, instead of trying to make. And maybe it does open up a new section, but yeah, it's just um that's all I had. Lots of potential, not a lot of shine. I might still keep playing it. I'm just it just burns my, like, unlike No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky is just an evil freaking grind. Like, I don't like it. It's lots of resource crap. Like this, I feel like I could sit down, play one more mission a night. Like, I don't think No Man's Sky. I don't think that other Spirit Fair has that sort of option.
You'll be alone in that thought there, Gary. I don't really plan to continue playing Anthem anymore more beyond this one.
Oh, game time. I played 14 hours on Xbox. Uh, got 7 achievements. I also found it interesting, the sort of the quit rate. The early warnings achievement, which is literally, I think, beating the first, the first full mission, 75%. The next achievement, which is incursion, 51%. And then all these other ones are like 25 to 30%. Like, so it just drops off. Like the third chapter of the game, and I think I've heard it was a 15-hour game. I'm at 14. I'm guessing it's more of a 20. But it just needed to decide what it was. If it was a multiplayer shooter, looter shooter, it needed to lean into that more and stop with all this single player. Like, we're going to have a story, we're going to have a base. Like, just make it a fun looter shooter. Like, sweet open area, like aerial battles. Like, just make chaos. Or just make a single player game. Like, or give me the option to have bots in my party. Like, it's just, I don't know. Did you think there was some potential here? Like,
oh yeah, there definitely was some potential there. Like, I'm really kind of bummed. Like, we got through a cut scene, I think, before one of the missions, or before we started playing together. There was like a nice cut scene of like this attack at the fort or whatever by this evil faction. It's kind of like, man, it'd be cool to kind of take part in that, just flying around these big walking tank things or whatever, shooting at them, shooting at other people in the sky and stuff like that. It seemed like that would all have been pretty cool to do. But you don't get to do really any of that. You just kind of
I
fly.
think that would have been a good tutorial, like Enter the Matrix level. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Enter the Matrix literally lets you have, in the first scene in the game, you get all the powers from the end of the game, but what it's trying to do is justify what your skill level is in shooters and stuff, and so then it kind of makes a suggestion of what kind of difficulty that you should be at.
The abilities, I think I've heard that called. So they give you like all the abilities right away, and then you lose them basically, and have to slowly work at regaining them afterwards.
Yeah, and in the Matrix game, it's that elevator scene where you're in this like bank entrance, and there's an elevator in the background, and you're just like shooting lots of agents.
Like the
Yeah,
uh,
the original Matrix movie.
yeah, the lobby scene there in the original Matrix.
The lobby scene, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I think, yeah, that opening scene looked awesome. Like, they had looked fun. It looked like, but it never ever achieved that, like, you know.
It never made it to where it kind of promised it could take you there. Really, it just kind of went, here you go, and then you're like, okay, and that's about it.
I would have a lot of comparisons to Destiny. Like I played Destiny 1, Destiny 2, like where they had factions, they had lots of like this actually literally took a lot of the tropes and just made it worse. Like I think they attempted a story, but yeah.
I think there was a
It's,
lot of stuff that went on behind the scenes with, I mean, how this game turned out. So, like, definitely Destiny is a great one to compare it to, but I think Destiny was given the longer leash there to try and get their stuff right, whereas Anthem came out and it went, and that was it.
yeah, but as I said, like it was supposed to be a AAA game.
Yeah.
Like it was supposed to be the game of the quarter, and it came out. People were like, really sure about this. Like,
I mean, they released a substandard product there basically, and the market went, "Yep, this is bad. We're not going to play it."
and this was before the real inclusion of cross-platform.
Yep, that was another thing there too. Yeah, we discovered that you have to play it on the same console system pretty much.
I feel like, yeah, if this would have came out after cross-platform, maybe it would have had a little more forgiveness because you could keep the player base a little more spread out.
Yeah, that might have been definitely given a longer leash there basically before they eventually decided to kill it. Could have maybe saved itself then too.
But yeah, I think it. No Man's Sky was this great uh, redemption tale, but No Man's Sky was released only on PlayStation. Like
Well,
as I said earlier, I think if this was even on a system exclusive, I think it could have maybe had a little more breathing room.
possibly. But
But
sometimes a bad
anyway,
game is just a bad game.
your face is a bad game.
That is true.
I don't. I guess any other thoughts on this one?
I guess here, just for Steven's benefit, we'll mention his issue with the whole thing. So Steven had multiple accounts there. I don't completely remember the full story, but he had like multiple Xbox accounts and multiple EA accounts that were kind of cross-linked there. So when he went to try and get this game, he just could not get it to download whatsoever for him. So
Explain, we were both getting on Xbox Game Pass, which allowed
yeah,
you the EA Play, which lets you play this game for free. Which, God, I can't imagine spending. I think it's still a $50 game.
God, I hope not. Let's see here.
I'll have to go look.
I gotta look at myself here.
Anyway, so Steven was while you're looking up, Steven was having some problems with multiple email addresses and stuff like that, and
Yeah,
so Steven did watch us play for a bit, but he also, I think his other concern was that on PC it had multiple launchers, a new application you had to install on your computer to run it. You had to install the EA.
desktop app. Yeah,
Yeah. And for me, I just sort of shrugged it off because, like, I know enough to know why they do that, and that's so they don't have to pay Steam or the Epic Store their percentage of to download it,
yep.
which is really, if that's somebody's cross to bear, then you just need to tell Steam to stop being so greedy. But easy to get on Xbox. It was
So
searching out.
the EA desktop app still lists it for $53.99. Wow. Cautionary tale for everybody listening here. Don't buy this game.
Get a temporary Game Pass and
Get a Game Pass subscription there, basically. That's insane.
actually on Amazon, $6 for
Well,
Xbox.
is that a physical
PC
copy
game
though?
code. What?
The Xbox one, is it a physical disc or is it the actual game or like a code for it?
As a ship. So it's free shipping, $6. PC is $8.50. It is 86% off its normal listing price of $60.
That's insane. That is insane.
$14. PlayStation's $20. Oh, the code actually here. Maybe it looks like the code is $6. PC Origins code is unavailable, but there's an Xbox One for $6. You can buy shards for $20. Like, it's still out there. It's obviously just a micro macroeconomic disaster because they've got these discs they need to sell, but nobody really wants it.
Yeah.
Also, I think it by nature requires the internet access. It's not a standalone game.
Yeah, that's unfortunately the way of the world right now with any pretty much games. They all secretly require an internet connection. Just don't realize it yet.
Yeah. I guess anything else? Otherwise, we can go to final critiques.
I've got nothing else really for it. I mean, like, to kind of segue into my final critique for it there. Like I said, my opinion was basically completely biased against basically what it nearly did to BioWare because of how poor this game released. Playing it with you was okay, but like it definitely was not a uh, fully realized game, pretty much.
Do you think if you could play it in a with four of us and the difficulty at a little higher, like it could have been? It just was so there's so many broken gameplay mechanics, but
Yeah, I mean, obviously, anytime you play a game with friends, here basically it makes the game slightly better or more bearable. But even doing that with this game, I don't think it would have been enough to turn my opinion around on it.
I guess my final review would be it's worth it. Set the difficulty to easy. It's worth $6 or a free Game Pass. Like, if you like, I think there's enough of that Mass Effectness that if you really want to grind it out, but then again, I'm someone who's fully completed Mass Effect Andromeda. It's not for everyone, and it's not great.
I don't. I think you're thinking of Mass Effect incorrectly. There, Mass Effect's about the story. This thing didn't really have, I feel like, much of a compelling story to it. But
you didn't get through the doors. There was conversations that were had with some of the other people. It not great.
okay,
There was a janitor conversations. The usual fan conversations in Mass Effect games. There's just a real annoying son of a bitch around the base that you just have random conversations with. There's a bar person. Like, there's characters, but as I said, it's a big open empty fort. Like, if they could just let you drop everyone else, like, is just playing in the same lobby fort, it would feel a little less empty.
yeah,
Like, I don't know why they made that choice to make it an empty fort, but you could go like one room over and be in a room that had like an open, like, walk around lobby with other people.
yeah,
Just didn't make sense.
good point there too. It definitely felt fairly empty as well.
And I wished I could run faster outside of the suit.
Never understood why they make walking so tedious. Oh, hey, you gotta slowly look at everything, basically.
Also, like, the missions were down in a basement or over there, like, and if I could run, that'd be fine. Or if it was a busy city. I even started trying to collect things throughout the city and throughout the game, and it's like, oh, you're adding this to the codex. I'm like, these seem like real, like, I can't read. Not a reading person in games. Whatever. But even I was like, if I wanted, I could have read every single codex entry. They were all, like, most of them were 2 sentences or less. Like, hey, you found this. Cool. There was an old man, like, so there were some people to interact with. But yeah, not great.
So, what would your rating be, Gary, if you were to assign one to it?
I still think it's probably a 4. It's not out of 10.
4 out of 10. Okay.
It's not great.
Yeah. I was sitting at like 2 out of 5 there basically for mine. So roughly that we come in at the same point there.
I mean, it's not glitchy anymore. It's not. Yeah. It's really a good example of what happens when a AAA game just isn't good versus when the sort of different feeling when like a real third party game is just real good. Like, what can you accept as like minor glitches in the game?
Exactly.
I think loading time would have been
Yeah.
solved a lot of the problems if I could just jump from mission to mission. Like, they weren't very deep missions. Missions only took 5 minutes or less, but you spent a minute before and a minute after in a loading screen. It starts to really hamper your pace. But maybe that's intentional because it's only a 15-hour game.
Maybe there's more stuff you're supposed to be doing in between missions and they just never got it kind of put into the game. Like you would with Mass Effect, where you go back and forth into the ship and have conversations with everyone.
I think there was some, like, if you could play some giant raids together, that might be fun. But yeah, I think they put the cart before the horse and didn't get a good game, and then try to shoehorn all this other stuff in.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. Did this one have the microtransactions? I'm sure it did, but
probably did too. Yeah, I think I made a joke about that in the store, that they still had the microtransactions up in the store too.
Yeah, they do. They still have crap to sell, and I'm like,
who's buying this?
But they also had random things that if you were an EA Play member, they'd give you logos for your Javelin, and then there were some random guns that I could buy for real cheap. It was like a level 54 gun, and I'm like, just started. I'm like, this is not balanced at all either. Yeah. Anyway, so that's our reviews. Tyler, 2 out of 5. Me, a 4 out of 10.
Yeah. Thus concludes our talk on the Anthem game. All right.
Yes.
So for next time, I don't even have to bring a wheel up to do this, because our next game up on the list is Steven's suggestion, Dwarf Fortress, which
yes,
I am so, you can hear the sarcasm in my voice, so looking forward to trying to sit down and figure that game out.
Yeah, mine is not that high. But if I give it the 2 hours that I gave everything else, I'm deducting time. Honestly, I feel like the time I played with you, Tyler, would have been plenty of time to review Anthem, but I did see that there were some more systems in the background. But yeah, Dwarf Fortress for next time.
Dwarf Fortress for next time. All right, well, that should do it for this episode of the Game Club podcast. Join us next time when we discuss Dwarf Fortress. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Everybody, bye-bye.